Hey everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with my co-host Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast, the Always the Hard Way newsletter, and we are previewing Paris-Roubaix, a very, it's a cobblestone by cobblestone preview, Andrew. And if you don't know what Paris-Roubaix is, it's a very long race in northern France over cobblestones. You'd probably say the biggest one-day race in the world. I would say the second biggest one-day race in the world after Flanders. I'm a Flanders guy, but Paris-Roubaix, massive race over very, very intense cobblestones. People love it. It's on Peacock. That's your crib sheet. What are you excited about going into this race, Andrew?
Well, Spencer, I think that it's time for me to do my annual promotion of my first mover advantage over on YouTube. I was there in 2004, and I did a little mini documentary about the specialized Roubaix at Roubaix event, which was the launch of the Roubaix bike at Paris-Roubaix.
I remember this launch like so vividly. Think you were part of it.
I was there, and I believe that's where I met Tim Schomburg, later of Road and then Peloton, and now Fausto fame, fantastic new print magazine. Ben Delaney was there. Ben did some camera work for me, held the camera while I was in front of the camera, I think at the Roubaix Velodrome. So if you want to see this is not 4K footage. This is probably like 500 megabyte. I don't know what you would call it. It's pretty low res, but it's kind of a fun look at the race. That's somewhere on my Andrew Vontz YouTube page. And as always, please follow Choose the Hard Way. Spencer and I just did an episode over there, and I've got Steven Seiler coming up soon. Find it everywhere you watch and listen. So Spencer, as it relates to this race, there is a lot that I'm excited about. And this is just a time of year for reflection. And I was just thinking back to the Moscone Cabrera year and how
Crazy, right?
It just seems like it happened in 1830 or something.
I was thinking about remember an Ineos one with Dylan Van Barle?
Wow.
I was like, wow, that feels like it was a million years ago. It was also, we should say, COVID happened. Spoiler alert for someone that's not got to that yet. COVID happened, and then the race it was like one of the major races that didn't happen. It was like this comedy of French error where they just like couldn't get it off the ground. And then the next year there was an election, I believe, in the spring. So they couldn't do it in the spring, and they were going to have to cancel it again 2 years in a row. They do it in the fall, but what that means is I actually loved the time slot. That was super fun. That was the Cabrera year. And then it happened again, but it was only like 3 or 4 months apart. So it's like the lost edition. You don't really remember that Cabrera edition that well because of that, I think.
God, that's making me think, what if you ran a race twice every year? That'd be pretty interesting.
It is pretty, I
like
think that
idea.
is interesting. And I think I really liked that fall time spot. If you remember, it was like one of the highest level of, because everyone was so fit, and then you just got weird, it was like weird stuff happening. Like Sonny Cabrera, I don't think he'd ever raced Roubaix before.
Right.
And he's riding off the front. Johnny Moscon should have been Paris-Roubaix winner. Oops, his tires were overinflated. He's slipping and sliding around he was like a pool noodle out there.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal race, though. And I think one of the hot topics going into the race this weekend is Visma's inflation system. I'm sure you saw this. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the company that makes the hub that can auto-inflate or deflate your tires. This was a competitive advantage that Visma has had the past few years. They've used the system, and in classic UCI fashion, it gets banned 3 days before the race.
Right.
It's like, how does this work?
That at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. How does this work? It's 3 days before the race. You know what? Let's pull the plug on this.
They've also been using it. It's
Right.
not like this is a brand new thing. I can't believe, I can believe it. I would be annoyed if I was Visma. That is ridiculous. The UCI, they've done some okay things in the last few years, but this seems very avoidable, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's highly avoidable. Who knows how that happened? I just thought of betting and prediction markets, and similar to some other market moving events, just wondered who over at UCI headquarters might have a polymarket bet placed on this or something.
I don't know if the liquidity would be it.
Yeah, that's true. It's not around Paris-Roubaix tire inflation systems. I don't know, but TBD. Spencer, what's top of mind for you as we head into this storied weekend once again?
Couple things top of mind. So you hit the nail on the head. This is ground zero for technical innovation because the ruthlessness, the brutality of the cobblestones, you have to just do weird stuff with your bike because a normal race bike optimized for speed, meant to be raced on roads, probably won't make it. So you just see funny stuff like this inflation system Visma's doing. Ineos is running mountain bike wheels. You see stuff, it gets pushed. What's kind of fun is stuff gets pushed like your Roubaix bike and it starts pushing the outer limits of what we thought was possible, and then it becomes standard in a normal bike. Is Colnago riding their aero bikes? It looks like they are. When I was at the camp in December, they had flown up to Roubaix to preview it and were testing the aero bike on it. And I thought, man, that seems impossible. You could use this thing on the cobblestones, but they're doing it. I also think it's funny that also these prediction markets, by the way, like let's say someone at the UCI had inside information, was a decision maker and was betting on it. Apparently they want that because it makes the prediction market more accurate. So they encourage insider trading because it means the prediction is actually reflecting reality. So don't bet on these markets because you're betting against people. They're encouraging people that know the outcome or are deciding the outcome to do it. Just my PSA. It's funny that you got sent to Paris-Roubaix because while it is an iconic event, it isn't one of the least glamorous parts of Europe that you could ever imagine going to. Was that the only major European race you got sent to as media?
Yes. And, I was a freelancer for a decade, and what bike companies wanted from me at that time was to get things about their bikes into mainstream, probably health and lifestyle related national titles. So I wrote for a lot of non-endemics. And then from time to time, I would write for cycling publications, and I didn't write exclusively about cycling. So I could get them something they couldn't typically get. So that's why I was there. And that's the only major European race that I attended as a journalist. It was a pretty cool event. As you know, Spencer, when you do I was coming from LA, so flying coach from LA to
such a long flight,
Paris to go to Chantilly, and then get up the next day. And it's like, oh, we're going to do an 80-mile ride with Gerolsteiner. And then you have a bunch of Cat 1 bike journalists. Nonetheless, it was a fun experience. And the cobbles, a little harder to ride than what you see on TV, it turns out. And and then we followed the race around with a highly knowledgeable local guide service. So we got to see the race at maybe 6 or 7 different points and then in the velodrome, which was pretty phenomenal.
That's pretty cool. We got to get you back to a different race. This is Project 2026. We're getting Andrew to the Giro d'Italia or something.
Yeah.
But also you would not believe how fit these cycling journalists are. Oh my Lord. How when Caley Fretz was editor-in-chief at VeloNews, he was as fit almost as a lot of the professional cyclists he was covering. How is this possible? What's going on here? But Roubaix, what's top of mind? Well, I guess top of my mind, Tadej Pogačar. Is he going to win this thing? It would be, as I think our friend Dan Swinson pointed out, if he wins it, he's never won it before. First time he raced it was last year. It would be the 5th consecutive monument he's won. So as Jonathan Kaplan put it, that's called the calendar Grand Slam. I think if he wins it, not only does he get the calendar Grand Slam, I think he would win all 5 monuments this year, which would mean that he'd won the last 7 monuments, which is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like that. So I'm not going to hide it. I want him to win. I want to see this happen. I want to see someone sweep the monuments in a year. It's got to happen. The problem is Mathieu van der Poel, very good at this race. He's won the last 3 editions. He's the best cobbled rider of all time. It's not even particularly close. The only person that could challenge him at this point is Pogačar. That is crazy to think that if he wins this, he's won 4 consecutive Roubaix, which I believe is the record for the most Roubaix ever won. And he would do it in 4 years. So we've never seen anything like that. I'm just checking my work. Yeah, only 2 riders have won it 4 times. Roger de Vlaeminck, Tom Boonen. Neither did it in 4 consecutive years. So that's the big story. The thing about that, though, is Roubaix is one of the you know, they go to Flanders, like we kind of knew that Pogačar was going to win if he was going to be stopped. It was Van der Poel, but Roubaix is a funky race, as we were hinting at in the beginning here. You get Sonny Colbrelli winning, you get Johnny Moscon sliding around. Something could happen, like, and by an outsider, I mean like a Wout van Aert could win, a Mads Pedersen could win, a Jasper Philipsen could win, who was second at this race 2 years in a row, 2024 and 2023. So something could happen, but I tend to think this is going to be another Van der Poel-Pogačar duel. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what it's going to boil down to. I think two interesting pieces of information that I saw. I'm sure this will be highly controversial. Wout made a statement that 2 kilos make a massive difference to his form in the classics. It was unclear in which direction.
Yeah, which direction. Yeah.
He was indicating. So I'm curious about that, because then I also read that Pog currently has 5 more pounds of lean muscle than he typically has at the Tour, just to have greater power.
Well, if you read the quote, and this is our new thing, we're close reading quotes now, going back to the primary source. He said, I tend to gain between a 1.5 and 2 kilos. Most of it's muscle, though. You're like, but then the headline's like 5 pounds of muscle. It's like, whoa, like I've used that line before. It's like, you know, I'm running 20 pounds heavier, but it's mostly muscle. Like, we know what that. But I mean, it's not crazy to think, actually, that at the height of your classic season that you would have 1.5 or 2 kilos more muscle, especially when you see how lean these guys are during the Tour de France.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another thing that's on my mind is just Quick-Step, formerly the Classics Kings. That's their bread and butter for decades. Just a non-factor. It's so weird.
It is weird. They do. I'm like frantically looking this up. They have done. They were supposedly. So what happened is they let the Classics squad erode for the benefit of Remco Evenepoel. Oops, the call was coming from inside the house the whole time, because they just could have been winning Classics with Remco Evenepoel the whole time. Oops, maybe should have done that. They rebuilt the Classic squad this year when Remco left with some of the money they got from selling him. They have, I would say, like Jasper Stuyven's been way better than I thought he would. I'm just looking up right here. He got 6th at Flanders. That's like winning a world championship. 6th at that race. That's crazy. And so Stuyven could do well. And they also have Dylan Van Baarle, who was really strong going back to, like, let's say opening weekend, I believe, Omloop, and at Kerner Brussels Kern, he looked like maybe back to his best. So those guys are very good, but you're right. The core of that team, it just doesn't seem to have that Classics motor anymore. It's just, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys too, you look at them, and this is a big red flag in cycling, a lot of the same names, like Yves Lampaert. You're like, I remember Yves Lampaert starting races for them 10 years ago. So just they've not turned the roster over maybe as aggressively as they would have if they had more funding.
Yeah, and again, if we're looking at some of the players outside of people who are likely to win the race, another thing that's jumping out at me, Colby Simmons, younger brother of Quinn Simmons, will be at the race riding for EF. Over on Little Trek, we know that Quinn on What's Occurring talked about how he's never going to race Paris-Roubaix because it's such a dangerous race and ruins his chances at
Amstel Gold. And he's right. I don't believe any riders ever won Roubaix and Amstel in the same year. So I think Pogačar getting second and second was the best anyone's ever done in those two races.
But just looking at this Little Trek squad, we've got Jonathan Milan, Mads Pedersen, Matthias Vacek. I mean, you just wonder, would Quinn's a bit, he's the right size to do some work there.
I mean, I'm still shocked he didn't do. I understand he wants to win Amstel.
Yeah,
and like maybe he can. He still could have done like Flanders. Amstel is very doable. Like I still can't believe that he's just not doing these classics. EF also has this very odd habit of just throwing. Like, how old is Colby Simmons? 22. But like Ineos have done this too, thrown really young riders in. Like 19, 20 years old. I believe that was Ineos. It was someone's first pro race, I believe. And they're like, hey, want to do Paris-Roubaix? It's
Right.
like, what is going on here? And I saw multiple EF riders training recently in Boulder, Colorado. And it's like, well, maybe we get those guys over there doing Roubaix. Like, why
Yeah.
are we doing this to Colby Simmons?
I
Maybe
think that may have happened to Colby last year or whenever his first season with EF. I think he got called up and they dropped him into Flanders or Roubaix. I'd have to fact check myself.
You're right. It was Colby Simmons.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And he did finish, which is super impressive. So maybe they think he's a future winner of this race.
Yeah, Spencer, another piece of equipment that there's been a lot of talk about. I know we've been discussing it with Dan, the Cannonball Swenson, and it's been a hot topic online. It's the Richard Mille watch of Pog, and we know that last year it caused some damage to the wrist. I don't know if you saw footage from the recon. He's wearing it maybe halfway up his arm, and I started to think about this. It's often the case that someone has a sponsor, and I get it. You do wear a watch, I suppose, when you're racing your bike, although you don't always. But also many sponsors that make physical goods that complement the cycling lifestyle simply have a logo. For example, you didn't see Saeco riders riding around with an espresso machine. So I don't know that Pog has to actually have this watch on for this race. I don't think it's actually that important. And I just wonder, leave it at home, or could you do something cheeky like on the Aero gloves, just sublimate an image of the watch? I don't, you know what I mean?
I feel like
Does this guy have to wear the watch?
Well, I guess the proof is in the pudding, because we've been talking about it for the last year. We have entire articles on Cycling News where they're zooming in on the watch. We all know about the watch. I guess that's worth it. And for reasons unknown to me, I'm not a watch man. I'm a Garmin. Give me the Garmin Forerunner is the fanciest watch I could ever imagine owning. But cyclists love expensive watches. I don't get it. But like, this is a $350,000 watch. I bet a lot of pro cyclists would have it. I do think it must be that must be a frothy product, right? Can you imagine the margins on that thing? And they figure, oh, it was so-and-so. Like I have friends who know about cycling just from the Tudor pro cycling team because they're so into watches. So I think this is like one of the biggest entry points for regular people. And by regular, I mean watch heads who want to drop six figures on a watch. And like, there's a guy who was a little caught up in the Epstein situation who's trying to unload some of his Rolexes. And like, my friends know all about like the Rolexes this guy's trying to sell. I'm like, this is a weird world. This might be weirder than pro cycling, but they're trying to merge the two. And I guess it's working because we're talking about it. It does seem like I'm looking at a picture of his arm bleeding last year from it. I can't believe they don't make a rubber, just make a rubber replica that he wears. That's what I would recommend.
Well, yeah, that, or I seriously think they could pull a Supreme, or I'm sure there's some other brand that is superseded Supreme that does the same thing, and just take a very common item and put an image of the watch on it. Like, take a $3 terry cloth wristband. There still would be 1,000 articles written about that wristband, and then you could sell it for $100,000. Then your margins would really be through the roof.
There could be, what if there's hundreds of thousands of people that are like, I want a spring for the Richard Mille watch, but I just don't know if I can ride it over cobbles. And they need this proof of concept. Will it sacrifice my chances of winning Paris-Roubaix? Yeah. And they're trying to convince the people.
Yeah. Spencer, something else that's been on my mind, and we did talk about this a bit last week. I've been reading this series of articles again this week about, one day Remco will be ready to make his Paris-Roubaix debut. Why is he not at this race? Like, what are we waiting for? Like, put him in the race.
This is one of those situations. So I'm a big believer. My Jesse Fingura conspiracy turn is all racing is the same. If you can ride a bike fast in France in the summer, you can probably ride a bike fast in Flanders in the spring. Just go ride your bike. Roubaix is the one race where I'm like, it's a little specialized. It definitely favors bigger, heavier riders. Like, Pogačar's 10 kilos lighter than the next contender for this race, probably 20 kilos lighter than Filippo Ganna. I do think that would probably hurt Remco, and there is a risk of crashing that would. You just have to be real. Yeah, as Johan's always like, it's a mentality. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? Just like
Right.
you want to win the race. That seems like a good mentality. But at Roubaix, you really have to be at the front with 160K to go. I mean, I don't know. As I'm saying this, he kind of checked all those boxes at Flanders. So
Right.
it does seem like he could just roll up, and he's so aero and he's so good at solo efforts. It actually, that this in Milan San Remo actually seemed like the best monuments for him versus Liège, Lombardia, and Flanders against Pogačar. You'd think that actually him riding off on the flats would be a better chance of winning. And it is, now that I say it, is kind of funny he's not doing this. I guess it's also seen as a very dangerous race, but the twist to that is every race now is dangerous. So is Roubaix actually more dangerous than any other race? I'm not sure.
It's Tom Boonen who made some statements this week, and I think he underscored the point that you just made, Spencer, which is Roubaix is a race where you're constantly exposed in the wind, and there's not a better, more aerodynamic rider in the world in the wind than Remco. So he would seem to actually be advantaged if he could just show up and do the race, I think
I mean,
is the thinking there.
like, where did Sagan rode off the front with like 50K to go, but he had Sylvain Dillier waiting up the road for him. Not on
Right.
his team, but just a friend a friend on the day who helped him out. But Remco, he could ride off the front with 70K to go. You know, that guy, he was solo for the last 50K of Flanders in hell zone, right behind
Right.
Vanderpoel and Pogačar. I got a question in my DMs that has been sticking in my head. Why did Mathieu Vanderpoel not want Remco Evenepoel to catch back on? Would it not have been better for him just to let Remco catch back on? That question is haunting me now. Like, why? I guess in bike racing, less riders are good because there's less things between you and your placing, which could be second if there's only two riders. But I do keep thinking about it. I'm like, why exactly did he do that? I'm seeing Vanderpoel went 60K solo in 2024. Do you remember that, where he was going maybe twice as fast as Mads Pedersen? Ooh, that was spooky. How do you feel about we missed him last week, Filippo Ganna? Do you think he can play spoiler in this race?
I don't think so. No, I
That's
don't.
sad.
I would love to see him play spoiler, but I just don't think it's going to happen. His level does seem higher than 2025, but it doesn't matter how high your level is if you're racing Pog and Mathieu Vanderpoel, unfortunately. And I also think, Spencer, that Pog's quotes following Flanders, I think, answer the question of why Vanderpoel didn't want Remco back on, because Pog also said he didn't want Remco back on because he said, hey, he's an incredibly dangerous rider, and had he gotten back on, there was some non-zero chance that he would have recovered and won the race.
Yeah, I mean, he is. Think about it, Amstel Gold. He's like a zombie. Yeah, I wouldn't want him back on. I guess I see that. Also, someone messaged me like, yeah, why didn't he let him back on? And then him and Vanderpoel and Remco could have 1-2'd Pogačar. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. That's not how bike racing works. You never see two rivals say, hey, let's team up on the third rival and attack him because they don't want the other one to win because they're all three equal rivals. Is the problem with that? I'm seeing Ganna, his best result ever, 6th place, 2023. I thought he had done better than that. It's a little funny to me he didn't do Flanders, because can you remember the last rider to win Roubaix without doing Flanders? It almost never happens. I actually was surprised it had happened. Do you know this rider? And they only didn't do Flanders.
Is it Matt? I'm going to forget his name. The guy who broke his wrist and then
Matt
won.
Heyman. You're exactly
it's Matt
right.
Heyman. Yeah.
And he only didn't do it because he had a broken wrist.
Yeah.
But
that's how Zwift got famous.
And then Johan van Summeren in 2011 did not do Flanders. So it is very, very rare to I remember Johan van Summeren winning. He was on the EF, whatever EF was called then. And then Wouters was in the velodrome, and he didn't seem that pumped about it. Probably because he had Tour Hushovd on the team. It was like, what the frick, man? I was supposed to win this race. You let my domestique right off the front. But I was like, this is kind of funny that Wouters is a little non-pulsed about winning one of the biggest races in the sport. But I mean, I don't know. I'm torn between my preview, my official written preview is going to come out later today. And part of me thinks like, don't even focus on, you get these, I hate these articles that come out. They're like 55 contenders for Flanders, like for Roubaix. I was like, well, that's half the field. All right. So that can't be your list of contenders. And realistically, it's going to be, this is 2023, first Van der Poel, second Philipsen. 2024, first Van der Poel, second Philipsen. 2025, first Van der Poel, second Pogačar. It's a theme here. It's like the same few people every year. Probably not going to be like Jim Bob Jim on that we've never heard of coming in to win the race. I think that style of racing is over. I think if you watch Roubaix last year, I was shocked I didn't quite remember it as well as I thought. With 170K to go, Pogačar is like in third wheel, like that's how early you have to be at the front. And he was pressing it. I had forgotten that he tried to go solo with 70K to go, and Van der Poel closed him down. And that was it. That was the move right there. So what rider has also the first three guys in the peloton out of Arenberg with 100K to go? It was Van der Poel, Pogačar, Pedersen. That was the podium and the finish. So this is going to open up early. It's super selective. I would not hunt for some outsider that we've never heard of to win this race. I think those days are done. Who do you think is going to win this race, Andrew?
This is honestly, it's a very difficult call. I do think it's going to be Pog. The thing that I'm really thinking about here, it's support riders and what happened last year where we had Philipsen, because, if you end up in a 3-up situation with Pog, Philipsen, and Van der Poel, I think Philipsen has a chance to win, actually, right? So the question is, I'm looking at the rosters and man-to-man, how does UAE match up with Alpecin, Premier Tech? And there's a lot of parity here. This is a topic for a future episode. I become fascinated by Antonio Morgado. I don't...
Yeah, he is a fascinating rider.
Well, just watching the UAE behind-the-scenes videos, which I'm actually dropping a piece about because I feel like I've unlocked part of the secret of UAE's high-performance program that has not been discussed much. So that's something coming up in my newsletter over the weekend, alwaysthehardway.substack.com. You can find me. There's a link in Spencer's newsletter. But Morgado is an enigma among the team, and I just want to learn more about this person. So anyway, I think there's this question of how do they match up man-to-man, but ultimately I'm going to go with Pog. And something very special will have to happen for him to win this. I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as it seemed at Flanders. What do you think, Spencer?
It's definitely not as cut and dry. It's a way more complicated race. Even though I was thinking about that with Philipsen too, where you're like, ooh, Pogačar's in trouble because Philipsen's on his wheel with Van der Poel. The thing is, Philipsen finished like 11th, 4.5 minutes down, because the race just got so hard, he couldn't keep up. I also think maybe he had a mechanical problem or crashed.
Right.
So, but as Dylan Johnson said on this very podcast, if you can get second, you can win. And he got second twice. So in theory, he could win. And he is dangerous because he can sprint in that velodrome, and he would win any group he comes in with. I also think Mads Pedersen, watch out for him. The thing about Roubaix is it's flat-ish. And when it's flat, weight does not penalize you as much. So you have riders like Wout van Aert, Mads Pedersen, Filippo, those guys specifically got dropped at Flanders. That's not going to be as big of an issue because they're big, strong men. I'm telling Donald Trump right now, but they're big, strong guys, and they're going to be less likely to be dropped on the cobbles than they were on the hill. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's just harder to ride away from super strong guys like that, including Filippo Ganna. So if Pogačar can't get away solo as easily, it's going to be extremely difficult. And think about last year. He crashes, and that's why he loses the race. But let's say he doesn't crash. How does he beat Van der Poel? He probably has to ride away on one of the final tough cobble sectors. That's not easy to do for Mathieu Van der Poel. So that's, if you were going to point out why he's not going to win, it's like, well, how does he get away? So he probably has to win solo, and how does he do that? Maybe you risk it, The velodrome, it's a funky place. Things can happen after 200. What did we see? Matt Heyman beat Tom Boonen in a sprint after 260K in that velodrome. So you never know what happens, but that's the thing I can't get past. I want Pogačar to win. I want him to sweep the monuments. Can he realistically drop Van der Poel on cobblestones? I don't know. I mean, even a healthy Wout was out of sorts last year. He was really out of position because he was scared to crash. He was playing catch up the whole day. If he's better this year, are they dropping him? Are they dropping Mads Pedersen? It feels hard to imagine Pogačar just riding away, but I guess in theory he could do it.
Yeah, and Van der Poel's never out of position at Paris-Roubaix. So maybe something like we saw last week at Flanders, where he ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. He had to put in a massive 1,000-watt plus effort to get back up as Pog was taking off, or who knows, maybe he has sniffles this week. Shimano just released a video, kind of like a little biopic about Van der Poel. I saw he does calf raises. I wanted to mention that.
I'm saving it for when the weather, if it ever precipitates here, I'm saving it for that to watch on the trainer. Do they show his house? That's what I was curious about.
They show both of his homes.
So yeah, I'm in, right? You got me there. Pro cyclist homes, I'm very interested. So I will be watching that.
I'm telling you though, the headline is he does calf raises, right?
Does he do them? What are we talking about? Standing on the bathtub?
No, in the weight room, like it shows him deadlifting, squatting, and then doing calf raises, which I thought was pretty interesting. Maybe there's some utility there that I don't know about.
I had a friend who was probably the least athletic person in my hometown. Like, just guy, hopeless at sports, hopeless. But let's say around 5th, 6th grade, he said, I'm going to do 100 calf raises a night. And we're like, you're crazy, man. He did this from 5th grade to when he graduated high school. And it changed him so much that he was an all-state football player, played in college, played in the NFL. Like, that's crazy. And I attribute it all to the calf raises. He was just every night he's doing 100 on the bathtub. And he did get he could like jump so high. It's like, maybe it is all about the calf raises.
That's incredible. I'm going to take us slightly off topic and in a dark direction, and then I know you're going to have to slide, Spencer. But I wanted to note, I came across a story this week about something I'd forgotten. Apologize if I pronounce this name wrong. Damien Toise. It's a French rider. And at the Tour of Oman, he had a horrible crash. And he just recently talked about what he experienced there. And I guess the medical care was so poor at the hospital that he was at in the Tour of Oman that the team doctor told him, I think you're going to die. You need to call your wife because they're not giving you the correct medical care. And he said,
Damien Housen?
No, I don't.
No,
it's.
Oh, no. I see. He's on Cofidis.
Yeah, Cofidis.
Yeah.
So he said, they put me near the bends. There were flies everywhere. It didn't feel like a place where you get better. And then eventually he gets back to Belgium. He said, doctors told me my abdominal wall hadn't been closed. My organs were in contact with the skin. Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah. It's just like, imagine being in a foreign country, having a nearly fatal cycling crash as a professional athlete, and then being put near trash dumpsters with your stomach ruptured with your organs in the wrong place in your body. It sounded, pro cycling is a pretty tough sport.
And this is not the first time I've heard about that. Like, there used to be popular to drive down to like Guadalajara and do stage races in Mexico. A little less popular to do that now. But I knew there's a guy, like, he's semi-famous in Boulder because he crashed at one of these stage races, and the stage race keeps going, and like he's alone in a Mexican hospital. And one of his teammates stayed back. Chuck Coyle, shout out Chuck Coyle, stayed back with him. And he attributes that to him. Like, that's why he didn't die, because he was just abandoned in a Mexican hospital, couldn't speak Spanish. It's freaky. When you go to these countries, you don't really think about it when you're healthy. And then you crash, even if you're not racing. Like, I was in Myanmar, and I was like, I don't know if I want to ride my bike, because what if I crash? Then I'm in the Myanmar medical system, which is maybe not. You don't think about it when you're not crashed, and then you crash. And even like Johan Bernal had a bad crash in southern Italy. So your friend, remember you did this Craig Lewis profile back in the day?
Yeah.
Similar situation. And You just get into a hospital that might not be the biggest or best, and you have a serious, like, life-altering injury, and it got to be a terrible situation.
You would just
Something to
think
be
if
aware
you're
of if you're
yeah,
riding abroad, I would say, out of your comfort zone.
yeah, you just think if the UCI's holding a race and that there would be actual medical care, but it turns out, hey, there's not. It's like zoo animals on wheels out there. But this weekend, it's gonna be a level above. A lot of stories about cobblestones getting stolen as well. That is the kind of thing where, I don't know, you have cobbles missing in the wrong place, that could be somebody's gonna have a bad day. So hopefully that's not happening.
Like stolen from the road?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, here's a question for you, a parting question.
yes.
I can hear someone yelling for me. It's very distracting. Is Pogačar going to get robbed? I mean, I'm a little worried about this watch thing. Like, what's to stop
Like,
someone just from running out and grabbing that watch? It's almost $500,000. It's a life-changing amount of money to a lot of people.
right,
And then he's just in a race. You're out in Timbuktu. Someone just
right.
comes in. I don't want to give people ideas. It's something I am worried about. Where, like, if cobblestones are going missing, what about the Richard Mille? Are we concerned?
Well, that's why you've gotta ride with your armed guard on your motorcycle at all times.
Yeah, that's why Niels Pollitt's on the team. He'll just bite
Yeah,
somebody with those teeth. Holy smokes. Stay away.
exactly.
He is that guy is an imposing guy. But I've got to run, Andrew. It's on Peacock. If you're in the US, the race is on
Oh
Peacock.
boy.
If you're anywhere else in the world, it's on HBO Max. So that's tax on us for living in the US. But anything before we go?
No, just come check out Choose the Hard Way everywhere you listen and watch. You can find me on social at Hardway Pod. And yeah, I'm dropping a newsletter about UAE's secret competitive advantage. So I'm excited to share that with everybody and looking forward to chopping it up after this race. Because where do we go from here? I'll tell
Yeah,
you where. We go to Mathieu van der Poel. If he does win, I think we're going to see 100% focus on the mountain bike world championship.
finally. He'll finally get it. Yeah, I mean, his vacation starts Monday. He is
Right.
checking out of this season
Yeah.
after this race. But thanks, Andrew, and I'm excited for the race, and we'll talk next week.